Second part. Throwing the cover back, the old woman invited the hunter to clamber into the wagon. Go on, pick out whatever you like, Granny Gerhardt said as she pulled off the cloth, covering a mound of cargo as if she were a robber, stealing the very clothes off someone's back. The smell of gun oil that already permeated the wagon's interior assailed their nostrils with renewed strength. Most of the weapons revealed had a bluish sheen. You're traveling in a hurry, no doubt. Tell me the itch you've got that needs scratching. I'll pick something out for you, Granny Gerhardt said, slapping the palm of her hand against the barrel of her rifle. The girl needs an automatic weapon she can maneuver with one hand, and fire without worrying about the kick. Plus a pair of little pistols she can hide up her sleeves, and the rubber belts to hold them in place. Roger that. Slipping between two oversized pieces of merchandise, Granny Gerhardt pulled out a slender gun. The foot-long barrel was attached to another 8 inches or so of weapon, with an iron rectangular box set just in front of the grip. Oh, this is a good one. Way back when, I hear they called these submachine guns. It weighs roughly 3.5 pounds, fires 120 rounds of 1.2 millimeter ammo. The muzzle's small, and you can't aim at long range like a rifle, but it'll hit any target within 50 yards, no matter how small. Might take you 100 rounds to do it is all. As long as you're pulling the trigger, bullets come out. I don't care if you're the worst shot in the world. You can probably kill 30 people before you empty the magazine. Seeing Dee's nod, she lowered the gun, then held out a pair of pistols she'd pulled out at the same time, placing one on either palm of the hunter's hands. These two are the same model, only loaded with different types of ammo. The one in your right hand has armor-piercing rounds like the gun I just showed you, and the one in your left has explosive rounds. 30 rounds in each. The armor-piercing one could cut through 5 normal people, or 2 people in the sort of Class A armor your garden variety for warrior favors. On the explosive rounds, first you've got the outer layer. They're covered with a ceramic coating which could get about 4 inches deep, going through the armored hide of something like a mid-sized fire dragon. Once inside, how do I put this? They go off with as much bang as a large Merovingian grenade. That'll put said mid-sized fire dragon out of commission. And the person, well, it'll probably blow the sucker into 4 separate pieces. Fine, said Dee. And the horse shouted, "Watch yourself. The old lady's a homicidal maniac." "Hush, you miserable squatter." Granny Gerhardt shot back. "Now, for the other 2. Which one's next?" she asked, giving the hunter a smile. Dee shook his head. "Oh, don't want anything then?" "That's right," Dee replied. Weapon in hand, Dee was just about to get out of the wagon when it rocked violently. "That's gunfire. The enemy," the old woman said, crouching down and reaching for a nearby gun. But Dee shook his head. The old woman nodded back. She'd figured out what had happened. The 2 of them got out of the wagon. With the gun Granny Gerhardt had shown him in hand, Pick wore a perplexed expression. "What's going on here?" Granny Gerhardt inquired with feigned anger, having already grasped the situation. "I don't know. I was just messing around with it, and all of a sudden bullets are coming out of it. What's with this gun? It doesn't make any noise at all when it goes off." The boy was the very picture of befuddlement. That's a weapon I found in an armory in ruins, so ancient they go back to before the nobility. See, the barrel's got this tube on it that kills the sound. Apparently in the ancient language it was called a muffleizer, or suppressor, or something like that. Just the weapon for taking out multiple targets at range before they even notice you. Only this time, it proved a little dangerous. What was dangerous about it? They gasped, intrigued. While a lot of monsters are pretty big cowards and most are likely to run at so much as the sound of a gun going off. But this one's silent. So even though their buddies were getting picked off, they didn't realize what was happening. The attacks just kept coming and coming. It was only after 2/3 of them had been slain that the rest finally turned tail. And by that point, I'd got a taste for blood, you see. Damned if I was going to let them monsters get away, and all that. Pick didn't say a word. As he gazed at the agitated old woman, old Granny caught her eye. Old Granny's lost her mind, his eyes said. Suddenly someone said what he was thinking. What a lot of savages you are. I can't stand it any longer. Annette, who'd been sitting on a round rock by the steam-driven engine, got up, drawing the stares of all. These were motionless. Granny Gerhardt seemed intrigued. Pick looked disgusted, and Yu had a faint smile on his lip. Indeed, why must we come to such a filthy British place? And as your business concluded, I'm done. In that case, let's hurry up and be on our way. The stink is so bad I'm fairly suffocating. Before you mount up, take these. Annette dubiously eyed what Dee had tucked under his arm. He dropped the iron weapons at her feet. What's all this? Weapons for your own preparation. I'll show you how to use them. You must be joking. I never had to carry anything so vulgar back in the capital. This is the frontier. The girl stalled for a few seconds, trying to turn the situation around, and in that gap she found a course that suited her perfectly. I realize that, but protecting me is your job, isn't it? Telling me to do it myself is a dereliction of duty. It's a violation of our contract. And you call yourself a hunter? Yeah, unfortunately, said the hoarse voice. Gracious. Don't change your voice every time it suits you. Is that supposed to mean something special? No. Ah. Annette fumed, crimson with anger. You could say she practically ballooned with it. Body quaking, she shouted, You, sir, are fired. I'm terminating you here and now. Is that understood? Yeah, unfortunately, said the hoarse voice. No. Oh. Annette found, ballooned with it. Body quaking, she shouted, You, sir, are fired. I'm terminating you here and now. Is that understood? Fine. The hoarse voice replied with what sounded like delight. It's an honor, but you've got to pay me my wages through today. I have to what? I have to what? I have to what? The hoarse voice mimicked shrilly. Granny Gerhardt sputtered, and Pick exploded with laughter. Annette had gone beyond red, her whole body purple with rage as the voice continued. It's only fair. You had us working for you up till today, didn't you? So, we'll say we've gone a third of the way. You must be joking. Who in their right mind would pay a worthless? It was unclear what Annette intended to say next, and they never did find out, for she had just looked over at Granny Gerhardt, and the old woman's face staring at her with disbelief was the product of fear. "What is it? What's wrong, Granny?" It took the old woman a few seconds to respond to the girl's query. "I've never... Do you have any idea exactly who you just called worthless?" Even having said that much, the old woman's fear hadn't dissolved. She just listened to a complaint about Dee. Annette couldn't understand the crone's sudden, quiet madness. "I know. Of course I do. I said it to him." Her finger took aim at the icy figure of beauty dressed in black. "Really? Frightening how little some folks know. Dee, sure you haven't mellowed too much now? You'll get into heaven when you die." Silence pressed in on them from all sides. A gust of wind stirred the air, leaving everyone but Dee holding their nose and coughing. When that had finally died down, Annette declared, "At any rate, I've no intention of paying good money for lackluster work." Once more sounding delighted, the hoarse voice said, "Have it your way." "So, you're planning on making the rest of the trip alone?" "No. I've already decided on my next bodyguard." "Oh." The expressions of all present said they shared the surprise. Annette turned in the boy's direction. "Eh?" On Pip's face, surprise, nervousness, and expectation all intertwined. I'd like to ask you to do it, Mr. Hurdy. May." The drifter furrowed his brow. Looking at Dee, he said, "But you'll take the job, won't you?" The girl continued, "I promise you'll be compensated if you see me home safely." This wasn't exactly a request, but rather a declaration accompanied by a glare, and for a moment her you had an angry look in his eye, but it quickly came back with a smile. "I don't know if I'll be as reliable as our handsome friend there, but if you're fine with me, I'll help you out." "Good," Annette said, but she didn't even smile. "In that case, you give him your horse," she ordered. "What are you talking about?" Pick countered. "The sheriff got this horse for me. You don't get to order me around." "The condition for that was that I take you with me, wasn't it? Hurry up and give him the horse. I'm elated at the thought of not having to breathe your stench any longer." "Listen to you run your mouth, you tramp." "What did you just say?" Annette snarled, baring her teeth. Now, Granny Gerhardt said, getting between them. "No need to fight about a little thing like a horse. Just consult old Granny Gerhardt, the traveling armory. If it's a horse you need, I can fix you the right one. Only, I don't have any cheap ones. Any cheap ones? I don't see any horses at all," Annette said, an unsettled look on her face. Her expression seemed to ask, "Why am I constantly surrounded by nothing but lunatics?" "No, I have them. I'll set one up now." "Just a minute." Her disturbing grin growing deeper, the old woman circled around behind the covered wagon. "Hey, mister," Pick called back over his shoulder to her You serious about seeing the girl home? She has some major issues." "She has some major issues." "Oh, now that sounds interesting. I may not look it, but in the past I worked as a bouncer in a saloon, and as a sheriff." I'm used to the rough stuff. You really don't look it.
You really don't look it.
The hoarse voice said. Indeed, the man's unusually thin frame didn't seem at all suited to. The rough stuff. The hoarse voice continued.
Seemed like too much trouble, so I didn't ask. But what are you?
Just an ordinary drifter, Yu replied curtly.
With a build like yours, you'll wind up a snack for some monster before you've drifted too far on the frontier. What kind of power have you got?
Power? None to speak of, Yu said, shrugging his shoulders. Of course, the man was actually the flying demon Hiki, one of the hunters hired by the mayor of Kushkin, Annette's father. Page break indicated by a small cross. Second part, and